Good afternoon, everyone. We are really excited to welcome you to the final program for Wednesday as part of the PhD Job Search Prep Camp. I am Diane Hull from Career Services. I am joined by my co-presenter, Meredith Wooten, at the Graduate Student Center here at Penn. And we are here to talk to you a little bit today about funding your graduate research. And so we're going to introduce ourselves real quickly, tell you a little bit about what we do, and then we're going to get started. We should have a little bit of time at the end for questions, if people have any questions to share with us. So Meredith, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do here at Penn for those students and postdocs on the call who may not know you.
Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Wooten. I'm the Executive Director of the Graduate Student Center. I would hope that all the graduate students on the call know about the Grad Center. We're the central resource for all 17,000 plus graduate professional students at Penn. So what the center does is provide you with space, activities, resources, advising. A lot of what I do is individual advising and liaising with our students, our student leaders, and our colleagues across the schools around kind of problem solving issues related to the graduate student experience. We have a suite of programming that is academic and professional development related, and tons of resources on our website. Our website is information dense, which means hard to navigate, but there's a lot on there. Same is true for the Career Services website. There's so much good information and you have to want to find it. The other thing that I would say that is relevant for this session is that prior to coming back to Penn in this role, I worked for several years in grants and fellowships. So I was working both with helping people apply for grants and fellowships, and then in that role, and then since I've also served as a reviewer for some larger grant and fellowship programs. So that's sort of the extra lens that I'm bringing to this session today.
And again,
Diane?
I'm Diane Hall from Career Services. My colleague Allison Howard has worked very hard to put together a great slate of programs today and tomorrow, and then for 3 days next week. And this is one of them. And so we'll be talking a little bit about at the end about how you can connect with Career Services individually to talk a little bit about your job search, as well as some of the other programs that we have coming up. So I'm going to turn it over to Meredith to talk a lot about resources that we have here at Penn to help you find funding. If you'd like to introduce yourself in the chat, we're always curious to see who's here today and what department you're from. So take it away, Meredith.
Great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of types of funding that I have the most information about. And then we'll talk to you a fair amount about how to find fellowships. And then sort of Diane walked you through the sort of where we'll end up. I know we have postdocs on this call as well. I want to be very transparent that my wheelhouse is really graduate fellowships, but a lot of this advice that we'll give you transcends phase of career. So when we are talking about graduate funding, though, there's sort of different categories. Obviously, educational loans and aid, so traditional financial aid. There are the institutional fellowships and grants that you get from the university, so Penn funding. There are federal training and research grants. Those have been in the news a lot recently and may have impacted you, or you may be worried about them. So things like NIH, F-Series grants or otherwise. And then nationally competitive fellowships. So things like the NSF, GRFP, Fulbright, the kind of larger awards that CURF would work with or another office would work with on campus. So these grants, sort of whereas like a training grant, a research grant really funds your research, some of these fellowships are really about funding you as an individual, or they're about funding professional development opportunities, internships. I know this session is about sort of graduate research funding. For those of you who may be earlier in your career, though, or sort of you haven't really gotten a lot of experience applying for funding yet, I would encourage you to look at some of these other opportunities as well, because the more that you apply for funding and successfully begin to be successful in receiving funding, the more competitive you are for these larger grants. So it can seem really silly to apply for a gaps of travel grant if your PI covers a grant, right? Do it anyway. Try to get, try to pad your CV as much as you can. In terms of institutional fellowships, when we start to talk about funding folks who might be at dissertation stage, there are kind of two universes of funding here. Again, the university sponsored funds, the big central university fellowships are things like the Provost Graduate Academic Engagement Fellowship at the Netter Center. That's for folks who are doing community engaged research. It's a really novel fellowship. It's structured over 2 years with the research funding in the second year. So really you need to be thinking about this in your second, third, maybe fourth, fifth year of your PhD. It depends on how long it's taking you. We give you 10 years. You can take all 10. Your advisor might not like that, but I'm fine with it. There's the sort of these other prizes from the provost office, the prize for teaching, that just looks good on your resume. Global dissertation grants. Penn Global has funding for students who are doing research abroad. Again, that's internally sponsored. The way to find out about most of these things is just to read your email. Get on listservs. If Perry Worldhouse is, if you're not on their listserv, but you're doing global research, get on their listserv. That's the easiest, best way to find out about those opportunities. And then there are a ton of school, center, and program-based fellowships and grant funding. The big ones that folks in SAS will be familiar with are the DRF and the DCF fellowships for folks who are doing research and or a completion fellowship, kind of a writing up year. Communication within the curriculum for folks who want to teach speaking intensive courses. That's again sort of a fellowship, not research funding. But then it really runs the gamut. If there is a center at Penn, right, whatever the humanities center, the whatever sort of whatever disciplinary centers are in your orbit, they may have a fellowship that is probably not well advertised, right? Because it is exclusive to students in a singular discipline, students in a single school. I know for the grad center, we don't really publicize opportunities unless they're open to multiple schools because our mission is inherently interdisciplinary. So those are just kind of, that's really the top level of sort of, this is stuff that's on my radar as I was thinking about putting together that slide. It is not the universe of institutional awards that are available. And now we're going to talk about external funding. So why is it important? I think you're here because you think it is important, so I shouldn't have to convince you, but certainly for folks that are looking to finish up and who are unfunded, it's important to apply for funding. You might be interested in topping off an existing fellowship. For those of you who are going into academia, being able to demonstrate to a future program chair, to a provost, to a dean that you have a track record of successfully applying for grants will help, right? This is the universe that sort of you need to demonstrate that you're able to fund your research, that you know what it takes, that you have that sort of basic skill that you've already worked on. Obviously, it also opens up a ton of different opportunities for you beyond just your research, right? A lot of research fellowships also will have annual attendance at a conference, networking, right? All of these other things that are really important to your longer research career beyond just the funding itself. So, and the reason I say that is if we have folks on the call who are in their first, second, third, fourth, whatever funded years, you may be told by a PI or an advisor that it's not important to apply for funding. I expect because you're here, you think it is, but I would encourage you to tell your more junior colleagues they should be doing this from day one, right? The more that you're able to apply for funding, get it, right? You have the track record, but also all of those other tertiary effects really, really matter. You will build up an academic network that will be so impactful for you in ways that you sort of are hard to articulate. Diane's career services, she'll be able to articulate the benefits of having that scholarly network for you down the road. But also, again, funders like to look at funders like to fund applicants who've been funded by others, right? It's just, we like to back winners. In terms of how you find these opportunities, there are a ton of resources at Penn in different places because that's how Penn operates. And I think most of you have experienced this. Penn is not a terrifically centralized university. So you have to do a little bit of digging. The primary place that you may want to start is CURF, so the Center for Undergraduate Research and Fellowships, right? So those are distinct parts of their mission. Undergrad research, obviously not you. The fellowships part may be. So if it's a fellowship that requires an institutional endorsement, or application process, nomination process, it is likely going to be going through CURF, but they also have a database. We'll talk about that in a second. That's a good place to start. The Grad Center has resources we'll talk about. The Vice Provost for Research maintains what's called the SPIN database, and then Career Services, the Grant Advisor database. We're going to walk through all of these. Up on this slide are some of the bigger fellowships that some of you, fellowships and grants programs that you've probably heard of. Some of these are really for earlier career folks. I would really encourage you to, particularly the farther you are along in your career, to think beyond the big fellowships and grants, to really look for the things that seem like they were written for you, right? This is exactly my research. This is exactly what I'm doing, or this is exactly the field, right? They're looking for someone who's doing this kind of niche work. There will be fewer people applying for it. You will be a better fit for the reviewers. I mean, so you have a better chance, but also then again, that kind of that other networking effect is much more impactful if there are folks who really are aligned more closely with you and what you're doing. All right, so I said we were going to talk about, and I would like to say, I want to acknowledge that I'm rushing a little bit. We have many slides and lots of information to get to you and not a lot of time to get it to you. So apologies if I'm talking really quickly. So I said I was going to walk through some of these databases. CURF, their website is curf.upenn.edu. If you go onto their website, they have a fellowships, there's the fellowships tab. Under the fellowships tab, there's a fellowships directory. In the fellowships directory, you can search by degree stage. That is doing the most work for you in this database. You want to put graduate student, right? It's going to cut out a lot of the other stuff that otherwise you would be filtering through. Again, they work with some of our larger awards and more prestigious awards. Many of these, if you're looking to do, I mean, I talk a lot about Fulbright, which I hope exists forever as a program. It's incredibly important. If you are someone who is doing work that involves research abroad, or there are just people abroad who are doing research like yours that are already your collaborators, that are already people that are kind of co-authoring with you, or they're using a slightly different equipment or a slightly different process than you that you would like to learn, Fulbright is a great program for that. If you are someone in the humanities and social sciences, you may already be thinking about them. If you are someone in STEM, they would love to see you applying. It's a program that's funded by the US State Department. You need to be a US citizen. Fulbright works the other direction too. So if you're abroad and want to come back to the US later, after you finish your degree, if you go back and want, there are Fulbrights for every stage of career. So you can get a Fulbright as a grad student, you can get a Fulbright as a postdoc, you can get a Fulbright as a scholar, you can get a Fulbright as a staff member, right? There are these grants for everyone. That's one of the flagship programs that CURF runs. And I'm mentioning it now because the applications for the 26-27 cycle are open now. You apply for Fulbright over a year in advance. So if you think not this coming year, but the following year, you might want to be doing research abroad, now is the time to apply. Then I said the Grad Center. I like this place a lot. The Graduate Student Center has a section of our website. At the top, you'll see it says Navigating the Academy. That's our intellectual and professional development programming. Under Navigating the Academy, we have a section on grants and fellowships. It is really information dense. Like I said, if you scroll down on that page, there are guidelines on applying, there are sample applications, there are previous workshops, there are databases, there's a ton of information to get you started in applying for external funding. In addition to that, if you sort of want to take the easy path into that world, in the grants and fellowships section, you can click on the sub menu and there are highlighted opportunities. And these are either kind of limited submission, where a Penn is invited to nominate someone, or some internal competitions. And then we have what we call the programs of interest. Those are fellowships and grants that we think are worth your time, right? These are prestigious. These are awards that fit well with our students or with our students' interests, or we've had students be successful with those programs. So if you kind of are looking to start with a curated list, that might be a place to start before you kind of dive into a more intensive search. But we do, again, have all the databases on that site too for when you're feeling like a deep dive into some of the databases. All right, Diane.
Great. If you want to stop sharing your screen, then I can start sharing my screen. So I'm just going to do a very quick dive into the Grants Advisor database. So can you guys see my right screen? Okay. So if you are interested in funding, you can go up to the top of our website, click on Learn How to Find Funding, and go down here, and we've got non-Penn or external sources of funding. So you are welcome to take a look at some of the funding resources that we have outside of Penn. And then there's two databases. The SPIN database is one that Meredith touched on a little bit, but I'm going to show you the Grant Advisor, which Penn has paid for you to have access to. So let's take a look at the Grant Advisor. I will tell you, this does not look beautiful from a web design perspective. They could perhaps use a little bit of design updating, but the information is there. And what the Grant Advisor database does is it scrubs other websites so that you can sort of do one-stop shopping in terms of trying to find opportunities of interest. And so in the interest of trying to take a look at this, I thought, would anyone like to unmute themselves for a moment and tell me what they might be interested in searching for?
Education.
Education. Okay, great. So there's a couple of different ways that you can search. You can take a quick look here under education. They will sort everything by the due date. And what you're going to see is a little bit of information about this particular NSF grant, the Science of Learning and Augmented Artificial Intelligence Program. So if we click on this, this is telling you a little bit about it, and it will provide you a direct link taking you right to the different proposal dates, the different upcoming information. So that is one that's really helpful. Now, this is just all about one particular field, in this case, education, right? So you're seeing our augmented intelligence, teacher scholarship, a dissertation fellowship program, a postdoc, right? So there's quite a few different areas that you can take a look at. You can also go into search database and you can really set some criteria that you're interested in. So if you only want to see things that are new, if you only want to see things that have been updated in the last month, the different academic divisions, if you want all programs, if you want fellowships, if there's a particular agency, this is a really exhaustive list of agencies across the country. And if you're curious to see what kinds of grants they might have, this is another way that you can search. So again, this is really looking to provide you with links in a way that you can sort of do one-stop shopping to search a variety of databases across the country. If you are interested in seeing previous ones, you can look at previous issue files as well. So you'll see these different files that you can download in PDF, take a look at sort of what's changed. So if you're interested in saying, okay, well, I'm not looking now, but I'm curious, like if I'm looking for funding in another year, what might I have seen at that point in time in the past? So this is a great database. It's a great place to take a look and maybe get some ideas rather than going to each individual website of each of these different funding opportunities. So this is certainly something that I would take a look at, again, under the Find Funding page of our website. So I want to make sure there's no question. Okay. All right, so let me stop sharing my screen and it's back to Meredith.
Okay. So I will say, back when I was doing fellowship grant work, one of the things that's really frustrating, but also humane, which you don't realize until the frustration has passed, is that there is no single comprehensive database. It doesn't exist. There are a few of these. There's Grant Advisor, there's the SPIN database, there are a few others that institutions pay to have access to. And even so, we're paying a lot, they're still not complete. And that ends up being humane for you because you also will get overwhelmed. So for those of you who are seeking funding, I want to just acknowledge that the search for funding is feels like a full-time job just finding the things to apply for. One of the nice things that you can do for this, right, if looking at like these older files might be really helpful for you to plan ahead for when you think you might be applying for something. In the same way, the SPIN database allows you to save searches and come back to them. So if you put in some keywords and you get a ton of just a ton of responses, you can save that and come back to it later if it feels overwhelming, or if there are things that aren't really open now but might be. The other thing about some of these databases that I would note is that they often are funding for every stage of career and for different entities. So you want to make sure that you do sort of specialized searches for who you are and what stage you're at, right? So if you're looking for a postdoctoral fellowship, you need to put in some terms that would indicate that, so that you're not getting like a grant that is really for an institution, right? That should be, Penn should be applying for that grant, or a nonprofit organization. You want to make sure that it's for individual funding. In terms of the rest of your search, again, I said the farther along you are and the more narrow your field and your interests are, you can still apply for these larger fellowships and grants, but you also are going to want to start to find the sort of the lesser known outside of your field opportunities, right? So they might be very, very well known for people in your specific discipline, in your specific area, but otherwise not. A really great thing to do now immediately is tell your advisor that you're looking for funding. Tell your friends, tell your mentors, tell everyone that you were thinking about applying for funding. Ask them what they think you should be applying for. Look at your professional. So when I was here as a student, I was a political scientist, the American Political Science Association, right? So do they have any funding? Do they have lists of funding? Does my subfield have lists of funding, right? Um, the most untapped, I don't know if that's the way you would want to say it, library subject experts. Librarians are the best people, maybe, on a university campus. They want to help you find whatever it is you're looking for, right? You have a subject expert, whatever field you're in, and that person knows how to sort information quickly, right? So that's sort of an untapped resource for you if you're looking for research funding, to just go have a chat with your subject librarian and say, like, hey, I'm looking for funding to do this kind of research. Can you help me? And either they already have a LibGuide for this that they've created and you've just made their day, or they will help you. Another place to look is at sort of more junior scholars, so folks who are still kind of assistant professor level or still earlier on in their career, particularly for grad students. At that stage, they'll probably still have on their CV things that they were receiving as a grad student. And as they move along in their career, those early grants can drop off, right? So looking at their CV, looking at acknowledgments, looking at who funded posters at the conference that you go to, right? So again, you're going to find out about funding opportunities that aren't necessarily otherwise going to come across your desk. And you often will have a better chance of getting that funding because it's not on everyone's radar. And then we already said there are a ton of funding databases. There are so many. Please don't feel, I mean, this is also a source of endless procrastination. It's like teaching. You can let it take up all of your time. Don't, choose a path, follow that path, and feel good about it. Don't feel like you need to search every single source.
Meredith, someone asked a question in
Oh,
the chat. Do you know of databases specifically for non-US citizens, which I don't?
yes.
Okay.
If you go to the Grad Center's website, if you go, I don't know if there's a database. We certainly have a listing. If you go to that grants page on the Grad Center's website, there's some little boxes that, and one says like fellowships listings and databases. And there should be a listing for non-US citizens. We also link, if you're grad level, University of Illinois Fellowships Finder, you can also search by citizenship status. And you can do some of that in the databases too. It's absolutely harder within the US to seek funding if you are not a US citizen. I say that's because historically our government has really funded a lot of research. It may be equally hard soon, but I'm not here to be Debbie Downer. So it's absolutely hard if you're a non-US citizen, harder to find research funding, but it exists. So I'd start there. I know we're running long, Diane, so I will. I already made this point, so I will just put this slide up and then hopefully we will share this slide with folks who attended or registered, share the slideshow. But I would not go into a search for funding wide open and just say, I want funding for research. I think the more that you can tailor your search, the less overwhelming it will feel. And then you're applying for things for which you're really a good fit. So like, what are you searching to fund? What stage are you at? Who are you thinking might want to fund it? If you're doing cancer research, the American Cancer Society might want to fund it. If you're not doing cancer research, they're probably not a good bet, right? Like who might want to fund the thing that you're doing so that you can start to narrow. Again, I'm going to do a little bit of rushing here. What it takes and what you'll need. Putting together a competitive fellowship, like kind of general fellowship application takes a really competitive, it takes at least 6 weeks. Almost always for a research grant, it's going to take you a lot longer. It will take you longer than you think because an important part of putting together a competitive application is having people review it and give you feedback. And that takes time, right? You need to give a draft to someone, let them read it, let them give you feedback on it. And then when they give you their feedback, do not say to them, oh, I've actually revised it since I gave it to you. You need to be able to sit with that discomfort of they're going to take a week to get you feedback and you need to focus on something else because if they've then given you feedback and you've changed the draft, they will give you no more feedback ever. So build in time for feedback, build in time for revision. You will need multiple people to be looking at your materials, ideally some people who have experience with the grants that you're applying for. Do not have chat GPT or to have AI write your application. It needs to sound like you, it needs to be your voice. It needs to make sense, not just in terms of what you're doing, but also in terms of what the funder wants to fund, right? So if you're using the same packaged materials for every single application, a reviewer can spot that from a mile away, right? Like this wasn't actually written for us. They haven't looked at what our selection criteria is. They haven't looked at what our mission is. They haven't looked at what we're trying to do here. You need to be able to tailor your materials, and that just takes a ton of time. In terms of track record and demonstrated potential is this lovely phrase that we use a lot, that I've heard a lot now of like, if someone is giving you funding, they are hoping there's an outcome. How can you demonstrate to them that you've previously shown potential to effectuate that outcome, right? What have you done in the past that's going to show them you're a good bet, right? So that's a lot of your materials, your CV, it's the way that you craft your project idea, your transcript. It's also your letters. If you can give your review, if you have letters that are associated with an application, if you can give the selection criteria, grant criteria to the letter writer before they write that letter, it will be a better letter. Again, that just takes time. All right, I think I'm almost done. So what to do now? You need to just do it. You need to apply, and it's painful. So the more that you can think ahead, start your search now. I said, the Fulbright deadline is over a year ahead of when you'd be applying. A lot of grants are a year out if they're the big federal grants. Some are the internal Penn ones usually are shorter. They might be 6 months, right? So, but they're still pretty far out in advance. So the more that you can be thinking ahead about funding you might need, the better. I would really encourage you to research before you submit an application, make sure you're actually a good fit. Some people will say apply for everything, but it's so time intensive. It can be a little bit of a, stretch, but if it feels like a long shot, it might not be worth your time, right? So really be careful about making sure you understand what they're trying to fund, why they're trying to fund it, and that you have the ability to show that you're a good fit. And then as I sort of came back to the point about starting small, if you aren't in a crunch for funding right now, and you're just, you're kind of thinking ahead and proactive, I would still start applying for things. This is a learned skill. Grant writing is something you will get better at over time. And you are at a stage in your career where you have a bunch of people around you who want to help you do it. Let them, right? Start applying for things, have people help you craft competitive applications so that if you get a faculty position and you're applying for your first grant at that stage, you don't want that to be the first time you're doing this. You want to really have done this. You want to have helped faculty apply for theirs. You want to have a sense of what you're doing, sort of again, just work on the skills over time as part of your professional development. Also, it just feels good. Small wins feel good. Big wins feel better, but small wins feel good. All right, Diane.
I am just here to tell you all that you are welcome to schedule a one-on-one advising appointment with Career Services. While we do not do full on, this is how you should find a grant or a fellowship out there for you, we are really excited to help you with the documents that you might need in order to apply to them. So when you need a CV, when you need a cover letter, but we are also here to help you with any kind of job search questions that you might have, whether they be academic related, if you're interested in faculty roles, or outside of academia. So I am dropping the link in the chat for you to log into your Handshake account, and feel free to schedule a career advising appointment with us. And if you want to go to the next slide, this is going to tell you about the upcoming programs as part of the PhD Job Search Prep Camp. So Meredith and I are wrapping it up today, but tomorrow we have a lot of programs about the documents that you might need as you think a little bit about next steps. And then next week, you will see on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we have some different programs about taking a look at things outside of academia, something about timelines, how to make a CV versus a resume, what to do if you're an international student. We also have an info session for our faculty job search cohort. So for those of you who will be or are already on the academic job market this academic year, you are welcome to apply for the cohort, which is an in-person opportunity to come together with other graduate students at Penn who are also on the academic job search. And that's an info session to tell you more about that. And you are welcome to come into our office that afternoon for a writing studio. So here's a QR code to register. We are out of time. But if anyone has a quick question, someone has a question, will we share recordings of any of these sessions? Any sessions that are recorded will be up on our YouTube channel in the coming weeks. So yes, like we are recording today's program. We record all of the workshops. We do not record the faculty or alumni panels. So that's the one thing that doesn't get recorded. But otherwise, they'll be up on YouTube. So Meredith, thank you so much for taking time to do this. We really appreciate it, and I hope everyone enjoyed learning a little bit more about where to find grant money out there. And everyone have an excellent Wednesday. We hope to see you later this week. Take care.